The sun slowly set over the mountains of Ravenwood, painting the sky with shades of orange and red. Eleanor watched from the window of the small wooden house, her brown eyes lost on the horizon as she absent-mindedly stroked an old book on the table. Arthur, her uncle, was preparing dinner in the kitchen. The silence between them was heavy, filled with untold stories and secrets kept for years. Since Eleanor lost her parents, her father in a tragic accident, and her mother under mysterious circumstances, Arthur had become her only family, her protector. "Eleanor," Arthur called, breaking the silence, "come have dinner." The young woman approached, her soft footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. Something felt different that night. Arthur seemed more tense, his eyes constantly darting to the window as if he were expecting something. "Something wrong, Uncle?" asked Eleanor. Arthur forced a smile. "Nothing you should worry about, dear." But Eleanor knew something was different. There was a strange energy in the air, a foreboding that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. That night, after Arthur had fallen asleep, Eleanor decided to explore the attic. She had always felt an inexplicable pull toward that place, filled with dusty boxes and forgotten memories. It was then that she found the first clue that her life was about to change forever. Among old books and yellowed photographs, one object caught her attention: a grimoire covered in strange symbols, its pages yellowed with age. As she opened it, her heart raced. She recognized the handwriting immediately. It was her mother's. "What are you hiding?" she murmured to herself. Unknowingly, Eleanor had just taken the first step on a journey that would change not only her life but the fate of all of Ravenwood. Outside, a black horse watched her through the window, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence that went beyond the natural. Shadow was alert. The night had only just begun. If this story intrigued you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching us from, and let's continue. The first ray of sunlight pierced through the attic window, illuminating the grimoire Eleanor had left open overnight. Its pages were filled with intricate drawings, symbols that seemed to dance between the mystical and the natural. Arthur climbed the stairs, his expression changing rapidly upon seeing the book in Eleanor's hands. "Where did you find that?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Eleanor noticed her uncle's nervousness. "It was here in the attic. It's Mom's, isn't it?" Before Arthur could respond, a loud neigh echoed from outside. Shadow, the black horse, was closer to the house than ever before. His eyes seemed fixed on the attic window. "That horse isn't normal," Arthur murmured. Eleanor noticed a white mark on Shadow's neck, a symbol that was identical to some drawings in the grimoire. Curious, she went down the stairs and stepped into the backyard. The horse didn't move. It approached her with an almost supernatural grace, allowing her to touch it. "How did you get here?" Eleanor whispered. At that moment, a gust of wind swept across the grounds, causing the leaves of the nearby trees to move in a strange pattern. It was as if the forest was responding to Shadow's presence. Arthur watched from the porch, his face a mix of concern and something more, almost like a secret about to be revealed. "He's not just a horse," Arthur finally said. "Shadow has a history that goes back generations before you were born." Eleanor felt her heart race. Something big was about to happen, and she knew her life would never be the same. The grimoire in her hands seemed to pulse, as if it had a life of its own. The symbols began to move, creating patterns that resembled ancient indigenous scripts, mixed with something completely unknown. "Who is Shadow, really?" asked Eleanor. Arthur took a deep breath. The time had come to start telling the truth. "Shadow is a guardian," he said. "And you, my dear, have a destiny far greater than you imagine." The surrounding forest seemed to wait in silence for the revelation that was about to unfold. If this story has intrigued you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Let us know which city you're watching from, and let's continue. The day progressed in Ravenwood, and the tension between Eleanor and Arthur was palpable. Seated at the kitchen table, the old grimoire open between them, Arthur began his tale. "Your mother, Evelyn, discovered something very special about this forest," he started. "There are ancient forces here, energies that protect the balance between the natural world and the spiritual world." Eleanor listened intently, her eyes fixed on her uncle. Shadow outside remained close to the window like a silent guardian. Shadow is not just a horse, Arthur continued. He is part of an ancient lineage of guardians. Each generation is born with the mission to protect a special power that exists within this forest. Suddenly, the grimoire began to glow faintly. Symbols that were once invisible appeared on its pages, forming an intricate map that seemed to move on its own. Victor, Arthur said with disdain, has always wanted that power. He believes he can control it, but he doesn't understand that this power cannot be mastered, only respected. Eleanor realized there was much more to that story. The mention of Victor cast a shadow of concern over Arthur's face. "What happened to Mom?" she asked directly. Arthur hesitated. It was time to reveal part of the truth he had kept hidden for years. Evelyn discovered an ancient ritual to protect the forest, but Victor wanted to stop this ritual at all costs. She disappeared trying to complete her mission. Shadow neighed outside, as if confirming Arthur's words. The connection between the horse and the story seemed stronger than ever. Suddenly, a strange wind began to swirl through the kitchen. The pages of the grimoire turned on their own, stopping, on a page with a complex drawing, a symbol that combined elements of nature with precise geometric shapes. "That symbol," Eleanor said, pointing, "is on Shadow's neck." Arthur turned pale. It was as if the forest itself was revealing its secrets. "You have a gift, Eleanor," he said finally. "A gift you inherited from your mother. The ability to communicate with the guardians of the forest." At that moment, Eleanor felt something awaken within her. A new, ancient and powerful energy began to flow through her body. Shadow outside lifted his head. His eyes met Eleanor's through the window. Something big was about to happen. And Ravenwood would never be the same again. The church bell in Ravenwood tolled at noon, announcing the arrival of a stranger. Victor stepped out of an old pickup truck, his eyes scanning the landscape with an intensity that made the locals shrink back. Arthur, watching from the porch, felt a shiver run down his spine. Victor's arrival meant trouble. Eleanor was in the backyard with Shadow, practicing a strange, silent communication that went beyond words. More and more, the young woman was discovering that she could sense the horse's thoughts, his emotions, his warnings. "He's here," Shadow whispered, through a mental connection that Eleanor barely understood. Victor walked down the main street, greeting a few acquaintances with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His steps were deliberate, his goal clear. At the local police station, he briefly spoke with the sheriff. No one fully understood the reason for his return after so many years. Rumors began to circulate. "I came to settle some old matters," was all he said. In the afternoon, Victor passed by Arthur's property. Shadow immediately tensed up, his muscles preparing as if anticipating a confrontation. Eleanor sensed something different in the air, a heavy energy laden with old secrets and unresolved conflicts. "Who is Victor?" she asked Arthur that night. The uncle took a deep breath. "Someone who has always wanted the power of the forest, someone who believes they can control it." In the grimoire, new pages began to reveal themselves. Ancient maps, symbols of protection, ancestral rituals. Each page seemed to tell a part of a larger story that Eleanor was only beginning to understand. Shadow remained vigilant outside, his eyes fixed on the road leading to the city. Night fell over Ravenwood, heavy with mysteries and expectations. Something big was about to happen, and Victor would be the catalyst for this transformation. In the room, Eleanor hugged the grimoire, feeling its warmth and vibrations. Something told her that her journey was just beginning. The forest waited, silent and powerful. At dawn the next day, a thunderclap woke Eleanor. Shadow was restless in the backyard, his nervous movements suggesting something important was about to happen. The grimoire left on her desk began to glow subtly. Ancient symbols danced across its pages, forming patterns that seemed to tell a story. Arthur entered the room, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said. Sitting at the kitchen table, he finally revealed details about their family's past. Evelyn, his sister and Eleanor's mother, was a special guardian. Not only did he protect the forest, but he also possessed a rare gift of communication with natural energies. Victor always wanted this power, explained Arthur. He believes he can control the forces of nature for his own purposes. At that moment, Shadow entered the kitchen, something unusual for a horse. His eyes seemed to understand every word, every nuance of the conversation. Shadow is not just a horse, said Arthur. He is an ancient guardian, chosen to protect a balance. Far older than we can imagine. Eleanor felt a growing connection with the animal. She could sense his thoughts, his emotions. It was as if they shared a secret language. An ancient document slipped out of the grimoire. A letter from her mother, written years before she disappeared. In it, Evelyn revealed a prophecy about a young woman destined to restore the balance between the natural and human worlds. "Sayuha, that young woman," said Arthur, pointing at Eleanor. Outside, Victor watched the house. His plans were about to come to fruition. The forest seemed to breathe, expectant. Something big was about to happen. Shadow neighed, breaking the silence. His eyes fixed on Eleanor conveyed a clear message. The battle was only beginning. The dawn in Ravenwood brought a thick mist that covered the fields and the forest. Victor had moved closer to Arthur's property, his movements calculated like those of a predator. On the porch, Eleanor watched Shadow, who seemed tense. The connection between them had grown even more intense in the last few hours. She could feel every movement, every thought of the horse. "He's planning something," Shadow communicated mentally. Arthur was preparing a protection strategy. The grimoire revealed details of an ancient protection ritual that Evelyn had started years ago, but never completed. Suddenly, 3 pickup trucks appeared on the road. Unknown men, clearly allies of Victor, began to surround the property. "Don't let them touch it," Shadow said to Eleanor, referring to the grimoire. A confrontation seemed inevitable. Victor wanted something specific, information about the ancient power of the forest that Evelyn had discovered. Eleanor felt an energy growing within her. It was as if the forest was preparing her for something greater. Plants around her began to grow faster, their branches seemingly forming a natural barrier. "They want the secret," said Arthur, preparing a bag with important documents. "But they can't know." Shadow positioned himself near the house, his presence more than physical. It was a mystical barrier, a true guardian. One of Victor's men tried to approach. Suddenly, a gust of wind threw him back, as if nature itself rejected him. Eleanor realized her gift was awakening. She wasn't just an observer. She was an active part of the protection. Victor watched from afar, his eyes gleaming with a mix of anger and admiration. The young woman was more powerful than he had imagined. The first battle was about to begin, and Ravenwood would be its stage. If this story intrigued you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching from, and let's continue. Night fell over Ravenwood, heavy with tension. After the morning's confrontation, Eleanor, Arthur, and Shadow prepared for what seemed like an inevitable battle. In the attic, the grimoire began to reveal deeper secrets. Ancient pages revealed a map of the forest with markings of energy points, places where natural power was most intense. "Your mother discovered something fundamental," explained Arthur, pointing to a specific symbol. "There is a point of balance between the natural and spiritual worlds. Victor wants to control it." Shadow, lying near the window, let out a soft whinny. His connection with Eleanor was now almost telepathic. Fragmented images of ancient rituals passed between them. A shocking revelation emerged in the grimoire. Victor was not just an invader. He had an ancestral connection to the forest, something that tied him to the land in a way no one fully understood. "He lost something important," said Eleanor, interpreting the visions the grimoire showed her. "Something that makes him believe he can recover through the power of the forest." Arthur confirmed with a nod. "Your mother always said Victor was driven by deep pain, not just greed." In the clearing near the house, this strange phenomena began to occur. Subtle lights danced among the trees, as if the forest itself was communicating. Eleanor felt her power grow. Plants around her began to move unnaturally, branches bending as if to protect her. Shadow stood up, his eyes fixed on the road. Victor was close. The real battle was about to begin. "I'm ready," said Eleanor, holding the grimoire. The forest seemed to breathe with her. An ancestral destiny was about to be fulfilled. The dawn arrived charged with an electrifying energy. Victor finally advanced toward Arthur's property, bringing with him a group of men and strange equipment that looked more like scientific instruments than tools for an invasion. Shadow positioned himself in front of the house, a living barrier, between Eleanor and the intruders. His eyes glowed with a superhuman intelligence, reflecting an ancient wisdom. "I've come to claim what is mine," shouted Victor. Arthur stepped out of the house, shielding Eleanor. The grimoire was hidden, but its energy pulsed, as if it had a life of its own. Eleanor felt something awaken within her. It wasn't just fear, but an ancient power flowing through her veins. The plants around her began to move, branches bending as if forming a green wall of protection. "You don't understand," said Eleanor, her voice echoing differently. "The forest isn't something you can possess," Victor laughed. "You don't know what really happened to your mother." At that moment, the grimoire began to glow intensely. Fragmented images appeared in the air, memories of Evelyn, pieces of a story that was about to be revealed. Shadow stepped forward, his body seeming larger, more imposing. It wasn't just a horse, it was an ancestral guardian. The real battle was about to begin. It wouldn't be physical, but a clash of energies, of ancient powers. Eleanor looked at Victor. "Tell me the truth," she demanded. The air around them began to vibrate. The forest waited in tense silence. Something monumental was about to be revealed. The silence was deafening. Victor looked at Eleanor with an intensity that went beyond hatred or anger. There was something more, a deep pain, a secret that had consumed him for years. "Your mother didn't disappear," he began, his voice trembling. "She sacrificed herself to protect something far greater than any of us could have imagined." Shadow approached, his movements slow and deliberate. The plants around them seemed to breathe in sync with the horse, creating an atmosphere of anticipation. The grimoire began to reveal images. Evelyn wasn't dead. She was in a different plane of existence, a spiritual guardian of the forest. Her sacrifice had created a protective portal, preventing external forces from destroying the natural balance. "I was trying to save her," Victor said, tears in his eyes. "Not to destroy, but to bring her back." Eleanor felt the truth beyond the words. Victor had lost something, someone important. His quest for the power of the forest was, in truth, a desperate attempt to reclaim what he had lost. Shadow neighed, and suddenly everyone saw an image in the air. Evelyn, young and powerful, sealing an ancient protection ritual. She looked directly at Eleanor, as if she had been waiting for her all these years. "The true power," said Evelyn's image, "is not in control, but in understanding and respecting the balance." The forest around them began to pulse. Subtle lights danced among the trees, creating intricate patterns reminiscent of ancient indigenous rituals. Eleanor understood her destiny. She was not just Evelyn's daughter, but the continuation of an ancestral mission of protection. Victor fell to his knees. His quest had ended, not with power, but with understanding. The grimoire closed gently. The truth was finally revealed. The morning light painted Ravenwood with hues of hope. Eleanor, Arthur, Shadow, and Victor were gathered in the clearing near the house, as if a new chapter was about to be written. The open grimoire revealed the final page, no longer a book of secrets, but a document of reconciliation and understanding. "The forest chooses its guardians," said Eleanor, her voice echoing with a wisdom beyond her years. "We are not owners, merely its temporary protectors." Shadow stood by her side, no longer as a horse, but as a living symbol of the connection between worlds. His white mark glowed softly, revealing ancient symbols that told stories of protection. Victor, broken, finally revealed the true reason for his quest. Years earlier, he had lost his sister in a failed ritual to protect the forest. Evelyn had been that sister, and her disappearance had consumed him for decades. "It wasn't power I wanted," he confessed. "It was just to find her." Arthur understood Evelyn's sacrifice. She had transformed into a spiritual guardian, protecting the balance between the natural and human worlds. The forest around them seemed to breathe differently. Plants bloomed instantly, and animals appeared in harmony. It was as if a new balance had been restored. Eleanor looked at Shadow. Her mission was clear now, to continue her mother's legacy, to protect the sacred territory of Ravenwood. Not power nor control, she said, only respect and connection. Victor, for the first time, smiled. His quest had ended, not with conquest but with understanding. The grimoire closed softly. A new era was beginning for Ravenwood. The forest kept its secrets, and Eleanor was ready for her destiny. If this story intrigued you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us which city you're watching from and let's continue.